Hi, it's Tim here from Digital Signage Explored. Today we have Simon Clapperton, Sales Director from TPP Retail. Simon, thank you very much for joining.
No problem. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, so I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. We're here at the retail event, just kind of going over why retail, why digital, and if I'm a retail store owner, let's say I've got multiple locations and I've not yet delved into the technology side of things.
Yep.
What's the questions that customers tend to come and ask you about first?
So I think the challenge that most customers have is either content or data related.
Okay.
So I think most customers want to go on a technology journey,
Right.
but they struggle with legacy systems, whether that's a POS system, an ERP system, PIM system, a marketing collateral platform. They have got 4 or 5 different systems and processes, and they can't combine the data and the content.
Okay.
So they've got the belief and the desire to go digital, but don't think they can make that first jump.
So is it more the fact that they've got all this kind of archaic setup that they've had?
Yep.
And the pain point, the concern is changing over that's going to be, what, too expensive,
Too
difficult to manage?
expensive, time consuming. Have we got the people in-house to drive it? Product owners. I was talking to a retailer last week she is leading a digital journey, but said as a business we don't understand the concept of product owners. So we want to implement a new technology solution, and the senior management believe that we'll implement it and it will work.
Right.
And she's saying actually it's a cultural change
Totally.
to understand that if you implement a digital signage solution, for argument's sake, you've then got to maintain that ongoing. Otherwise, it just becomes a digital poster.
Yes.
And then that's a huge investment if you're not managing the ROI. And again, it's getting people to understand what the ROI is.
So it's that intelligence of knowing that when you're getting started down this journey, you have to have an infrastructure, you have to have the right people in place, you have to have an ROI measurement. What typically, let's take one of those challenges, let's take ROI. How would you typically respond to that? What is the ROI and how do they see the benefit?
So I think you need to understand what the customer's challenge is. So what are their pinch points? If you take away what we're talking about and actually just talk about their business, what's failing? Is it shrink? Is it lost sales? Is it margin? Is it customer footfall?
Yeah.
If you understand what their business challenge is first, then you can fit the solution to it. I think too often, both sides of the fence, either us as sellers or the customer as buyers, look at the solution and think that will work in our business, but they don't know the problem they're trying to solve first. We had a meeting last week with a builders merchants, and we're fortunate enough to meet their MD, and we were talking about the benefits of our solution, which he totally got, and he said, but hang on. He said, we've got 2 issues in our business. One is margin, and the second one is wait time in our stores.
Okay, interesting.
So how do we fit? He said, everything you're saying is great, but can we come at it from those 2 angles?
Okay.
He said, then I'll be able to sell it back into the business because the ROI will present itself, and it's in a language they understand. So I think that's one of the challenges, is us as sellers not establishing the need.
So when we're talking about that digital journey, and that, as you said, so the first thing to do when you're looking at kind of improving your technology is what are the actual pain points? And I'm sure they're kind of varying depending on what kind of store it is.
And that's the key point, because we fall into the trap of saying this solution worked for retailer A yesterday. Retailer B looks like retailer A, therefore it must be the same answer. There will be parts of it that will be the same answer, but everyone's got their own little nuance.
And I'm assuming that will kind of vary based on like location, what they're selling, the kind of brand value of the company.
Exactly.
So if you're like, take an Aldi, kind of where it's about cost saving, it's about speed, versus an Apple or something. They're 2 completely different products that need 2 completely different journeys.
And it's even silly little things like the message, let's say silly, but these are the important things, the messaging and the size of the messaging. So to use that budget grocery space, they want to be loud and they want to be obvious.
Bright colours.
Exactly that. So they might want a 55-inch screen just saying £1 because that's the message, whereas Apple would want an 8-inch screen with a more detailed message, a more subtle message. But both being driven by the content management platform and typically both trying to drive a sales increase, but in a different in a different space.
I think that's the thing that I've seen a lot in the struggle is that when people look at the first-hand investment, the hardware, the software, the infrastructure, all of that, they go, now that we've got this digital footprint, we need to cram it with as much information as possible. And I think that's always the wrong way of looking at it, because you then turn it into a big newspaper and no one sits and reads that.
Correct.
And it's the benefit of having a digital infrastructure is you can be more intelligent with when that message is delivered, rather than delivering all of the messages all of the time.
And you use newspaper, I always think of a newsletter.
Yeah.
So every company over the years has said, their marketing department, wake up, we're going to do a newsletter.
Yeah.
Everyone goes at it 100 miles an hour. It's brilliant for the first 3 months.
Yeah, and then
it tails off. And then you end up with a crossword, pictures of people's babies and pictures of people's weddings.
It's difficult. Content creation is a lot of work.
Exactly that. And to your point, if you go hard and fast, you create your own problem. And what is the messaging? And back to my point, you don't want to end up with digital posters. That's the wrong place as well.
Right.
But again, what's your strategy, what you're trying to achieve, and using other data that you've got in your business. I always talk about, and for years really, things like change of season, just change of time. If you're a hospitality outlet, the fact that you're moving from breakfast to lunch to dinner is a simple content change driven by a real life event.
Yeah, and now it's becoming to the point where you can be intelligent with that. That can be automated to some extent as well. Obviously, you can have your day-night scheduling, you can have your weekend, weekday scheduling, you can have preloaded campaigns for seasons. But you can also say, okay, what weather is outside? Does this affect the way our customer behaves? And kind of understanding, it always comes down to understanding your customer and understanding their problems to alleviate that. And just doing it in a large way.
And I think, and it's hard because, as I said at the beginning about, you don't want the legacy systems and the data and the content to be the blocker.
No.
So the danger is you start talking about, capturing that data. Have you got your customer data? Have you profiled your customer? And then they say, oh, well, I haven't got that, so we'll
Maybe
stop.
We start shrinking away from that.
Absolutely. Whereas I think you can do the two things side by side and start collecting some of that data whilst already implementing a solution.
So do you have, because obviously you speak to customers all the time from different ranges, do you already have in your head like a checklist of things you want to know about the customer?
Yes, I think you should have, and I suppose it's slightly contradictory to what I said earlier about everything's slightly nuanced, but there are some core questions you need to understand, and you mentioned some of them earlier. So have you got the people? Have you got the content or the data? What are you trying to achieve? And we always forget what's your budget.
It's quite an important one.
Sales 101. But if we don't understand the customer budget, then you can't understand the ROI. And or as I say, some of those benefits. We did an exercise with a customer 3.5, 4 years ago, and it was a complete digital transformation of their business. And we were fortunate enough to meet with the owner of the business. And he was just doing the mental maths. And he said, so if we do this, 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 and this, it's going to increase my sales by, and he said, £20 million. And at that point...
That's an easy ROI.
Exactly that. And it was like, and it taught us to ask some of those questions that he was asking of himself. Because that drove the answer.
Well, I think because the ROI, there's like a twofold. It's a cost-saving exercise, because if you're dealing with multi-store locations in whatever scale, you've got print media, delivery, shipping, just the logistics of getting everything to where it needs to be, wear and tear, all of those bits and pieces, which, there is absolutely still in digital as well, but it's the speed of the delivery and the effect that you can have on the customer journey there and then. If a queue is busy, let people know that this queue is quieter. If you can see there's a massive stock overage that's costing you storage, then get that sale out there as soon as possible, get the shelves cleared and get the new product out.
Yes, it's exactly that. And it's understanding, to your point, and those will often be different in different stores, in different regions. So you might be solving 2 or 3 problems. Rather than trying to fit a global solution to stores for argument's sake.
And the proof of concept is always a great way to start. Take your 3 flagship stores, are the ones that you tend to do those tests with, and then just compare apples to apples and just see what it does.
No, I totally agree. And I think that's also a very good point, is trying to land something. Because if you try and solve all of the problems day one, you'll never...
way too much. And there's too much you can do with digital to go, I'm going to do it all straight away.
Yes, exactly that.
What I always say is, if you're thinking about digital signage for the first time, buy one screen, put it somewhere prominent, and put the content you expect to see in your V1, and you'll see the reaction change. And you will also have, I mean, if you're looking at executive buy-in, you'll see them buy into it the second they see it in person. Talking about it is very different to seeing it on the screen.
Absolutely.
The second you see it, you go, oh, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Let's have this. Yeah.
And I think, and some of it is very interactive. If you think about sort of lift and learn and sensors, and again, if you're approaching a display unit and you see the content on a screen change behind it, you are sold.
It's a switch.
Absolutely.
Total mental switch from what you believe and what you see and how it gets delivered.
And it's amazing how quickly senior executives will find budget when it's something they're excited about. It's interesting. A lot in our world is the electronic shelf edge labelling, and there has been a real tipping point this year because it's been rolled out on Aldi and Lidl, and we are just being approached by customers who said, my CEO's been in his local Lidl, we must have that. But it took those guys to implement it before anyone would believe it. And
absolutely.
it's the same with digital signage, or digital content. It's the belief, well, we've got this marketing budget, we print this many point of sale campaigns, and they work. Why am I going to invest in displays, a management system? What's the benefit? Whereas if you, to your point, put that in proof of concept in a store, and that senior exec can go in and see the content changing based on them, based on the time of day and based on the weather outside, then they're absolutely sold.
Absolutely. I think we're at the point where we're not at the very beginning of digital signage anymore. It's well established. Big companies have it. It's a regular thing, but it's trickling down now. And I think as hardware is becoming a little more cost effective, you've got better ways of implementing it. It's not quite as worryingly and also you have a generational gap. You've got kind of the younger generation joining the workforce that are totally comfortable with managing a digital platform. And you're just seeing those two things combined, where you'll see the smaller, not saying the independents or the one store, one shop, but they're all starting to take over that. And it won't be long now until it's just part of the infrastructure.
I totally agree. And I think the only sort of danger, or not danger, it's just the obstacle we've still got to overcome, is the people that looked at it 5 years ago or 10 years ago and it was too expensive, too hard. They've still got that in their mind.
Need to go in a fresh slate.
We've got to get over that. And then the second thing is where people have implemented it badly. So where we said before about if the top exec sees it, they're bought in. But equally, if the top exec goes to his local cinema, trying to buy his drink and his popcorn, and the screen behind the counter is running the Microsoft failed message.
That's doomed for a lot of it. From a CMS perspective, it's a nightmare. We don't tend to work with anything that isn't Windows, completely stripped of its Windows experience because of that reason. And I think that's, especially if like you go watch a movie and you go, we don't even show this film anymore and the content's outdated. So back to the kind of infrastructure and planning piece is so key.
Absolutely. But that stuff's really easy, but it gets missed. And actually, it's better if you go to a self-service kiosk and the receipts don't print. So you've got to take your order number to the counter, but you haven't got your printed receipt. There are really easy ways to monitor that receipt. But that's the bit that people don't do. They get very excited about the content, very excited about the messaging. But then the solution falls down because you haven't got a basic low-tech solution, or you've run out of paper. But there are ways of preventing that. But we're all focused on the fantastic interaction and the content, and then we've got no paper. So it's the low-tech thing that makes it fail, but there are things within the technology that can solve those problems.
You're trying to make a story, and a story doesn't work if you miss out a piece of that story.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter how amazing your ending is, if I don't know how they got there, it's kind of irrelevant.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.